What ridiculous thing do people brag about for some reason? I've noticed in mom groups the women like to flex by saying how long their baby or kid hasn't been without them. For example, my kid is 7 and I've never spent a night without her. I've never spent a night apart from my 5-year-old, but I'm sure not proud of it. I just have no support structure because my husband's job has us moving all the time. I'm very tired. Being OCD even though they are not obsessive compulsive at all. Like being OCD is some organizational badge of honor. Yes, the casual use of that medical ailment to show how much attention to detail you have is awful. It's not even remotely the same thing. True OCD isn't a choice and it can negatively impact your life in so many serious ways. It's just like people who flippantly say they're bipolar when they just mean they're indecisive. It's so disrespectful to people suffering from the real disease. How little time they have. It's annoying how they'd be bewildered about how people would have time to watch films or read books and make comments about how they could never find the time, but then I'd see them on social media for 8+ hours. Yes, they're like, I wish I had time for those completely manageable things. You're so lucky. I'm just so busy all the time, every single minute of every single day. How many kids they have. When I was a waitress we had a cook who crowed about how he had 12 kids by multiple women. That's not something to be proud of, my dude. You're a deadbeat dad 12 times over. That's just bragging about debt from child support and being a deadbeat who can't wrap his dong. When people try to one-up others' struggles with their own, that is, my life is so much worse. It's sad, really. Why do you need to convince others that you have it harder than them? And they seem to always sound happy discussing it because it makes them feel superior in some way. Maybe that person's issues might not seem big to you, but they're big to that person. In a Yorkshire accent, when I were a lad we were so poor we ate stones for breakfast and that were a luxury. Pre-pandemic. How sick you are yet you still made it into work because you are that much more hardcore than the wimps who stay home for any little sniffle. One time this one guy made it into work an hour after being under anesthesia for a colonoscopy. This same guy also came in with a terrible flu and fever that he would go throw up in the bathroom every hour and refuse to go home. They think they are so awesome, yet all they are doing is screwing over the entire office by getting half the employees sick, and the other half left to pick up the slack and work double time. Frick those type of people. Thank goodness that stuff doesn't fly these days. Me and a lot of my friends are convinced that COVID made its way through my school's sophomore and junior class, because literally everyone in those grades last February-March got violently ill for a while. We all thought it was just like a super contagious flu, but in hindsight it's a possibility that it was the virus. Whether it was COVID or not, it was because some butthole came to school knowing that they were sick as a dog and made everyone else suffer for weeks. I hope that if people are going to continue coming in sick after the pandemic is over, that they can at least be considerate to wear a mask. I know I will. Professors bragging about how many students fail their class. They use it to terrorize students and wear it as though it's a badge of honor. It's unbelievable how full they are of themselves, that not once did they ever pause and ponder if the failing rate was due to their lacking. Well, just like that one viral post said, I guess congratulations to you mom sir, you suck at your job. Additional, it irks me when some professors think of themselves highly because they have all these degrees and got off from a great university, and so on, to the point that they're completely dismissive and unreasonably mean. Like, come on, you aren't even that competent. You cannot teach to save a life, let alone actually educate us. And yet you have the nerve to be totally inconsiderate and boastful? I had a professor take a year off to write his own curriculum. He apparently didn't test it. 20% withdrew. Half that remained were failing. Nobody had an A. No one could understand his expectations. Quiz questions were like if he circled the head and top hat of a stick figure and all he wrote was identify. Do you want head, hat, top hat? Are we supposed to know that's Fred? I told him this and he was like, oh yeah? Name a bad question. You used an overhead shot with zero depth perception of an exotic flower with sepals the same odd shape and color as the petals. I knew in advance you'd have sepal as the gotcha question, and I still got it wrong. If you'd used any other photo, angle, or species, if you'd used a side view diagram, it would have been fine. He got real quiet. Only 1 out of 43 students got that right. The one student who got it right was in lab listening to us. Apparently he'd asked specifically about that photo in the text because it was so hard to tell what was in it. He then wanted me to go to his office with him and tell him every question that was bad, but I refused because they all were. I will pray on this, he said, which is not what you want to hear from someone failing half his section on ecology and evolution. That professor still made a PowerPoint presentation saying of our failing grades trend may be destiny, and insisting that we needed to study more, but the scatterplot he added of our lab study times showed no such pattern. You were just as likely to fail if you spent 4 hours in lab or 20. A couple weeks later, he panicked suddenly as we were going over fungal reproductive cycles. He was suddenly possessed of a thought as we went over an illustration that showed mushrooms in a circle like ours on a clock. He gravely warned us that mushrooms don't actually rotate. That's how stupid he thought we were. The normally green colored part of the flower that covers petals when they aren't in bloom. Since everyone knows stem and petal, etc. But sepal is a lesser known but equally basic structure. It's Professor Tess Candy. Mine is a bit specific, but women who brag on their BFS husbands for babysitting their own kids to give them a break. Raise your expectations on what a good father is, ladies. For example, here's one I saw on FB. Wife, I am so lucky. Name of husband, has agreed to babysit our girls today. He's a shrewd negotiator though. He is getting some special attention from me tonight so I can get some time out of the house. Can't wait. Thanks. Name of husband. I know the husband. He works part-time and usually when he's not working, he's out with friends while his wife is home with their 3-2. The bar is set so low for some guys that occasionally watching their own children is cause for celebration reward. My male cousin was married to his wife for 19 and he never had a job the entire time. They had no kids. She did not make a lot of money and he is totally able to work. But we all thought, whatever, if they're happy with the situation, then fine. But then she would post things on Facebook like hubby made dinner today and it would be like pork chops and canned green beans. And it was hard not to wonder, why isn't hubby making dinner every day? And she even posted a picture of a necklace and put, hubby let me splurge today, even though she made 100% of their income for 2 decades. Some people are weird. I used to know a guy who would brag about all the girls he slept with behind his girlfriend's back. Congrats on the STDs and complete lack of the concept of commitment, I guess. This just makes me mad. If you want to get STDs then go ahead, but when you're cheating and then having sex with your partner as well, you're not only being a cuntwit by cheating, you're freaking putting them at risk of STDs that they didn't choose to be at risk for. Mental issues, like I've known people to literally fake mental problems cause they think it's cute or quirky or something. It's not something people should want to have. It ruins your life. PLS stop. Because of those people it makes it difficult to say you have mental health problems without making it seem like you're looking for attention. I've got 2 that bother me. The I don't know anything about computers people, and the I never read people. I work in IT and I have legitimately had to teach an adult how to use a mouse. A Gorham store manager, who needs to use the computer probably about 65% of his day. Don't brag about never updating your skills to keep up with your industry. He only lasted a month before they fired him for being incompetent. And the I never read people drive me nuts. Because I read as often as I can, and they often interrupt me while I'm reading on my break just to brag about how they never read. But shut up and leave me alone. I'm busy. My dad is in IT and has his fair share of stories. Honestly, if you want to be good at computers, just learn how to Google. Think about how you phrase your question and don't expect the first result to instantly fix your problem. It blows my mind how many people can't Google their issue. As a woman, I absolutely cannot stand when a woman brags that she is a bad bee, mostly because the only women that I've ever heard brag about that are usually super loud, obnoxious, and have really abrasive and unapproachable personalities. I think it can be a wonderful thing to feel like a strong and confident woman, but if you define being strong and confident by being rude and a bully, then you're not a bad bee, you're a bad person. How they're not into whatever is popular, and that somehow makes them better. I was one of those people. I missed out on some fun things that I'm just now getting into. Playing devil's advocate here, but for me discovering a new hobby interest and figuring it out on my own is a huge part of the appeal. If something is so popular that I feel like I already know it before even starting, that's a huge turn off. How much they spent on something, how little sleep they got, how many hours they worked, how they don't read, how they put a customer service worker in their place, also just general bragging about how mean they are. I will almost never discuss prices of something if I paid full price, but if I found a great deal I'm happy to share. Moms that brag about how they haven't showered or taken care of themselves in days because of the kids. Self-care is important and necessary. How much they don't need people. It's desperate. Just be solitary and go. The ones that brag don't seem that happy in themselves with their own company either, so clearly the whole solitude thing isn't working out very much. Those who are content with being on their own don't go on about it constantly. They have nothing to prove. My ex was like this, constantly trying to make me feel inferior and immature for ever needing help or support from anyone. He had such disdain for most other people. He prided himself on being an island, while mooching off me for 5 years, not paying bills, not cleaning, and not looking for work. Did the same thing to his next girlfriend too, crashing on friends' couches in between girlfriends, and even just living rent-free with his roommate for a while, and driving the van his more financially successful younger brother bought for him. But he doesn't need anyone. I always internally roll my eyes at anyone that brags about their purse, or whatever else, that's covered in giant logos. As my grandfather used to say, why would you pay a company to give them free advertising? The actual answer: materialism, American consumer culture, and associating designer goods with social status. Totally down with someone buying designer clothes if that's what they enjoy, but there are unironically people who think buying an LV bag or Gucci shirt elevates their social status, which is just sad, to say the least. How they don't give a frick. Work, college, school, even in friendships and relationships. It boggles my mind how many people think it's cool to brag about not giving a frick about their careers, responsibilities, or even their behavior towards others and how it affects them. It's almost like they think failing classes, losing jobs, and causing drama with friends or being toxic to others is badass. I heard this interview or radio personalities one morning, can't remember what exactly it was, and one of them said how they've never gotten in a fist fight before, and the other person stopped them mid-sentence and said, wait, you've never gotten in a fist fight before? Come on, not once? That's crazy. How? And she just kept going on and on about how she's gotten into so many fights and she can't believe the other one hadn't. That's not something to be proud of. Bragging about having beef with a lot of people. This baffles me so much. Some genuinely take pride in having issues after issues with a bunch of different people. It doesn't prove anything except suggest that perhaps you are the problem. How much hotter colder the climate where they live in is. For example, if there's a heat wave going on in Europe, then you can guarantee a bunch of people in TX will go off on how it's so much hotter in TX. Of course they ignore the fact that many countries don't have their infrastructure set up for heat waves, while the people in places like TX move from air-conditioned home to air-conditioned truck to air-conditioned office. I'm guilty of this, but coming from a place that can be quite cold at times, I won't do it again, I swear. I get weirdly proud when someone tells me that they like something I have or am wearing, and I get to tell them that I got it on sale and how much I didn't spend on it. Any type of mental illness or condition. I support mental health awareness and that more people should talk about it, but dang, people should not use their diagnosis, or self-diagnosis, as some kind of a badge. I get very upset hearing about it. This one girl in class was taunting this girl about her hair and clothes and calling her a lesbian. I asked her why she had to be such a bee all the time. She said, what can I say, I'm bipolar. I just call it like I see it. Like what? I told her I'm bipolar and don't do that. Then kid behind me who had his head down went, I'm bipolar too. And then the teacher came into class and the whole thing got weird. Then I dated the guy behind me for a month and then she told him I was spreading rumors that he had a small dong. I wasn't, but he broke up with me and then he told people I gave him a BJ under the school stairwell. IDK how my response turned into a cry of help for therapy, but yeah, I agree with you in a nutshell. Their boyfriend husband's height. I met a woman a few years ago, in her mid to late 50s, who bragged to me about her fiance's height. He was 6 feet 5 inches. I could not for the life of me understand why this woman, who was well past her childbearing years, would smugly announce to me that her soon-to-be husband was 6 feet 5 inches, like she had won some sort of trophy or something. I would have understood if she had been young and, as a short woman, wanted a taller man to ensure her kids wouldn't be small like her. But you're not having kids, lady, so who cares how tall the poor guy is? Some people. So bizarre. In Kenya, a lot of the men I met would brag about their wife's weight. It showed how well they were able to provide for and feed their family. Do gender reveal parties fit into this category? Burning down the west coast to brag about your kid's sex is the weirdest flex ever to me. Guys on Tinder showing off cars, boats and houses. Possessions are just material, and says nothing about a person's character. How spicy they like their food. No one cares if you pour hot sauce all over everything you eat. If you like it, fine, but it's certainly not worth flexing about. Even more annoying is when they make fun of people who don't like things super spicy. This may not by definition be bragging, but I see a lot of people talk very passionately about the things they don't like and how much they suck. It makes no sense to me because if I find something I don't like, I walk away from it, but I see people just go on and on about how bad something is. Why do people feel so compelled to wrap themselves around something horrible like that? People who brag about getting crazy plastic surgery, like it doesn't make you look younger or sexier, it just makes you look like an alien. Kids these days seem to brag about mental health and trauma. It's normally kids making it sound much worse than it is who get here the most, and the ones with real problems are either too scared embarrassed to admit it or just get yelled over by these others. Why has mental health problems now become a bragging right? Yes, it's good to normalize it but not to almost promote it. Man, I work 120 hours a week and I also go to school at night. I'm just accustomed to busting my butt. So, you're constantly depressed and overworked? Do you want a cookie? There are some really annoying hustle grind types, but for a lot of us in the 70+ hour week gang, I don't think it's really bragging. It's two things. I have very little else to talk about because when the heck else would I be doing stuff worth talking about? Most of our peer groups collapse to professional colleagues or family who are interested in how we are doing. I'm not a huge fan of the do what you love nonsense, but if you get fulfillment out of your job then it isn't depressing. This is just how some of us live life. How much money their parents have. Even worse when they brag but lie about it. I know a guy that always goes down that avenue somehow when we talk. I began being falsely interested and got the address of the house his parents sold. Right in the same conversation I pulled it up on Zillow and it sold for $230K in a hot market. It was nice, but wasn't the way he described it nice. He said Zillow made a misprint. Yeah, okay. I can't help but wonder if people are getting bragging confused with just telling someone something. I know there are plenty of braggarts out there, but some of this stuff is just, I can't believe anyone would brag about not paying attention to current events or trends. Maybe I'm the braggart? I only got one assignment today. Nice. I didn't get anything. I'm more lucky. Or, I have so much work to do, like 5 homework assignments. Well, I have 7, that's nothing. Just about how depending on the first thing said the other person will just about always challenge that. So what is a winner? The one with more or less of something? Depends on what was said first. People who brag about mistreating service workers just bring my pee to a boil. Every time I hear someone chest puffing and bragging about how they told off some McDonald's worker, it makes me wish they'd take a fricking blender to the face. Even if you are in the right and a mistake was made, you don't get to treat some minimum wage food service worker like a fricking slave to be owned or abused. Mistakes happen. You didn't lose a fricking kidney. Be a civil human being and respect one another. We're all human. I was behind a guy at my favorite sushi place and he was abusing the lovely Japanese woman who worked there for something stupid. He was truly awful to her while she was politely apologizing for her mistake, if she even made one. When he left, I told her she was doing a great job and not to listen to him. I can't remember what exactly I said, but it must have cheered her up because from that day onwards she personally brought me a free miso soup every time I was there. She was so sweet. I think kindness is underrated and needs to be celebrated more. Obviously I didn't say those things to her expecting a reward, but kindness begets kindness. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.